Hello. So it's been quite a few days already, and it's the first time actually I'm JSConf, which is amazing because everybody thought I'm part of the crowd already. So my talk today, after I'd found all your computers here around me with the bonjour thing, originally I wanted to call it How to Teach JavaScript Without Sounding Like a Dick, but I didn't think that was a good idea, so I just called it Community.js Reloaded. If you remember last year, we had Chris here on stage who talked about the love the pirate and damn the privateers. So he started to remind us that as a community, we're not quite there yet. We're not quite public. People don't see JavaScript developers as a community, much like we see the UX community, the accessibility community, or the Flash community. And we did some good things about this, and we changed it a bit, and that was good. So the first thing we did is we did an operation cleanup, where we actually put badges on our own blogs that linked to documentation of JavaScript on MDN to make sure that certain websites that have bad JavaScript information are not showing up in Google as the first results anymore. And well done, we've worked around that, and we have a better thing. We actually went further with that, and we called these websites out on the problems that they had with their website. So there was this w3cfools.com, which actually showed all the errors that are on W3 schools, and allegedly they're looking at that and actually fixing the W3 schools as it is right now. So this is even better. Rather than replacing something we didn't believe in, we're trying to fix something that is out there and people use and find as the first information piece. And it's pretty good that we managed to get there. So thank you. Thank you for doing that. Great job, everybody. We really go out there, and JavaScript is becoming more understood by people as a technology that runs the web and is there for the web, and not something that should be compiled into something else, or you have to write a real language to turn into JavaScript, which is always a fascinating approach a few years ago. So, well done us. So we now can say, great, we've done it. We can pat our own back and say we've done something great. This is a real patent. You can look that up on the website. It's a pat on the back machine. This is what we got patents for. That's why it's good to get patents, so you can sue each other over stuff like that. Challenges, however, are there still. We have new challenges to face right now, because we had the old one of us not being seen as a community, but we still are in a world right now where JavaScript is being seen as something that is running everything, but the web is not quite there. The web is now in danger of being something that has to change. People say it's not fast enough. We don't have access to things on hardware. The web is dying, some people said already. And you're like, okay, fair enough. I heard that several times. But looking at technology and looking at some of the languages that other people use, I'm starting to think we have to ramp up a bit and go out there. And our challenges, the stuff that stops us from being listened to and stops us from just calling out that some of the things in the press are wrong, are actually all homemade, more or less. And these are the challenges. We've got a fanboyism going on. The meshing with other communities is not working the way it should be. We're geeks. Social skills is something we normally have to work on, and sadly enough we don't, because it's a very, well, why should I change? A patch and forget thing is going on, and official educational materials are painful. Then there's the siren song of native development. Like everybody like, okay, I could do the web and learn about everything around me, or I can write an iPhone app and make millions of dollars. When I listen to TechCrunch, that's how you do it. But sadly enough, lucky enough, it's not that way. And tools are a big problem to me as well. So let's cover the basics. Before we start doing anything as a community, what are the things that we as the JavaScript web community actually want to come from, and how did we learn it, where did we came from? And one of the things is like view source wins. Nobody here can tell me that they sat down and they're in their kitchen with a nice pipe and read a book about JavaScript and started learning it from scratch that way. We looked at other people's view source, we copied and pasted stuff out until it broke, and then we read up why it broke. Then we understood why there are the problems. So the view source is the main thing, how people get into what we're doing. And the view source does not only happen in the browser, it happens now on GitHub, it happens on Google Code, it happens on wherever you put your code in your blogs. People learn from what you do. So it pains me when I see new demos of cool new technology that have really bad code and really badly written code, because people learn bad mistakes from copying and pasting. Collaboration wins, of course. It's like you put things on GitHub and a day later somebody put something cool out there and added something new that you didn't think about. And all the stuff that I do, my slides are all Creative Commons, my books are all the articles that I write are Creative Commons, so you can translate them into other languages, and people do that for me. So work together, not be that one guy that does something and doesn't allow people to add to what they've been writing. And trial and error wins. A lot of times we throw things out and we say it's awesome, and then after 3 comments on the blog we realize it's actually not that awesome. So stop writing blog posts with one simple example saying that's the best way of doing it ever. There are great collaboration tools. JSFiddle, for example, is a wonderful thing that shows somebody when they have a problem on an IRC channel. Oh, that doesn't work in HTML. You can show them HTML, JavaScript, and CSS in one screen and an executable version of the problem that he has. And anybody can fork that then in JSFiddle itself and update it and fix it with you. The other day I asked for rotating headlines, like 90 degrees rotated headlines in CSS that also work in older browsers. And I just put it up on JSFiddle, put it up on Twitter, and like 20 people sent me different versions of it, and 15 minutes later we had one that's now going into the MDN documentation. I could have done that on my blog and be awesome and be the great blogger, but in that tool, we just did it in 10 minutes together in an afternoon on Twitter, and you can all do that. Which brings me to fanboyism. And fanboyism is something that is actually a real problem to me, because we all have our, why don't I go full screen? We all have our little things that we like, and everything else is not as good. And we shouldn't, especially with browsers. Working for Firefox, I have so many people coming up to me, and the first sentence is like, oh, I'm sorry, I use Chrome. I'm like, I'm not sorry for you. If you're happy with Chrome, fair enough. There's nothing sorry about it. You don't have to use the browser that I work for. You have to use a browser that is modern, and you have to update your browser. And when you find something wrong with that browser, you have to file a bug about that problem. Then I have no problem with it. If you write code that only works in one browser, send it out on the web and say, like, that's the future. Then I'm sorry, this is the past. This is what we did in 1997. That's why we have these websites that only run on Internet Explorer. And we do the same thing right now with a lot of WebKit demos and demos with experimental stuff, and say like, well, of course it's broken in other browsers because it's experimental in this browser. Yeah, then write your code that it detects the features and shows it. And if it doesn't show it, then show a video. Show the people what the other browser that you love actually can do with a video. Best example, Canvas. You do anything cool in Canvas. Make a screenshot of what you do in Canvas and put it inside the Canvas element as the fallback. Not only for people who don't have Canvas, but also if somebody links that on Facebook, that's the thumbnail. So somebody sees already what's happening in your Canvas thing before they go to it. So love the web. This is the connectivity of the web on this planet. This is how many people are connected and how fast they are connected. How light it is the speed of it. Isn't that awesome? Isn't that amazing? Why should I write things that only work in one country? And a lot of native code does that right now. Sorry, you can't watch that video because you're not in America. That is not the web to me. So we should fight these kind of things. We're a community that is worldwide and talk to each other worldwide in several languages. We should tell companies the same thing. So www is the World Wide Web. Never forget this. It's worldwide. People with random computers, bad connectivity, really old browsers that cannot upgrade, that don't even know how to upgrade. And they should get something. They should not get everything. They should not get the best experience, but they should get a experience. You shouldn't block out people. So it's not we love WebKit, and it's not Windows, 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 like some companies tell us, like, oh, look at Internet Explorer 9 and 10, they're great, they use HTML5. Oh, you're on Windows XP, sorry about this, you can buy a new operating system, then you get HTML5. As a community, we should say, no, this is not working, I'm sorry. So you can't, we have to fight IE6 and XP users every single day, and we should get some support in that as well. And it's not welcome Western world. So if something does not work in other languages, it will have to work in other languages sooner or later. And I don't see many talks about internationalization in JavaScript, because there's a lot of stuff happening there. So stop following rock stars. That's another fanboyism that annoys me. Like, oh, Chris Heilmann said this, Paul Irish said that guy said that. We make We make rock stars out of developers, and when you meet these guys, they're all down on the ground. They're all nice people. They make mistakes. They make public mistakes. So don't just take verbatim of what everybody says, what I say, what anybody else says. Become one of those guys. Talk to us, talk to other people, communicate over MDN, over other communities to become part of the band and not just the one rock star that will basically be in rehab in 2 years because he just worked too much. Meshing with other communities. There's a danger to inbreeding. And this is an example. This is a JavaScript-only community conference. Great, we talk to each other, we get very excited. We release 5 different libraries on every JSConf that never get used in any product. But it's awesome, this is innovation, this is great. Designers do the same thing, UX people do the same thing, semantic people do the same thing. We don't talk to each other. If you look at products that we build later on though, it's a mixture of skills. You work with designers, you work with UX people, you work with the semantic HTML guys, you work with the back-end developers. And why are we at conferences on our own things and build things that only we are impressed with, rather than having talks with a designer and a developer together? Look what we built together, and this is how we worked with each other. That's something you can take back home. So I want all of you, after this, what you learned here, to infiltrate as much as you can. Go to UX meetups, go to enterprise-level Java architecture meetups and just talk to them about the cool stuff we've seen here. Because if we don't do that, we're going to be this little geek group in the corner that nobody cares about. We now have to spread the word out of our community into the world, and that's very important. And technology is always a pick and mix. It's never one technology. I saw this in a park in Poland. I really liked it. I'm this kind of geek when you like physics stuff, like, ooh, it's wonderful. So this is the result. It's basically, I took canvas, had some circles, and rotated them. So I realized I do everything in JavaScript, because I'm a JavaScript guy. And then somebody, you can rotate that in CSS as well. And I'm like, okay, so I rotated in CSS, wrote 10,000 lines of CSS for every browser out there that might or might not support animation. And then I thought, why not actually mix the two? So if you look at the JavaScript of this one, I actually do the painting in Canvas, but I do the rotation in CSS when it's available. So I write out the CSS animation only when it is available, because then I don't have to worry about it. The animation runs in the background. So I see a lot of talks about CSS animation, a lot of talks about JavaScript animation. Not much mixing going on again, and this is what we should be doing. Use browsers to what they can do, not what you like them to do mostly. So a little bit of respect for other people is another very important thing. So whenever we release things as a community, and you have this great thing with like a great animation in 3D, and then you look at the thing and all the buttons are actually just like divs with a click handler on them. And somebody like me says then, okay, how about a keyboard user? How about somebody who can't see, a blind user? Why don't you use a button when there's a button element? And people say like, well, yeah, it doesn't matter, that's only the HTML. So these people will not use our demos when they don't apply to their rules. So partner with a designer, partner with somebody who understands markup to build really cool stuff together. And you see people like Leah does that, and you see how good her stuff is. I can only do like 9 cats in my slides. So let's partner with designers and others. And stop selling our solution as the only legit ones. Every community does that. PHP versus Python versus Ruby versus Java versus Perl. Yeah, solid. I mean, when you're small when you work in a small agency, you have to jump from technology to technology all the time. So be at least aware of the boundaries of what other people do, instead of saying like, you should write this in Python, I'm not going to take it if you use it in PHP only. Or you should do it in JavaScript, I don't understand what you're doing with your stuff there. Which brings me to social skills. There's a big problem in the geek community which is called well actually. And there's a really good blog post about this, linked from these slides, who are already online, that explains to us that we always accumulate information. We love information that nobody else cares about. And they tell something interesting, or they tell a joke, and we're like, well, actually, what you're saying is like, we should be doing this and that. The interjection of trying to force our knowledge onto other people as geeks stops us from being in meetings where decisions are being done that actually mean we have 8 more weeks to do on something that could be 1 week. So think about before you intercept in communications, and also on mailing threads and stuff like that. I call these douchebagisms, and a lot of them are actually being called all the time. When you start a sentence within the real world, you lost. Because your real world is your own planet. It's not like anybody else's real world. It's very dangerous to start with that sentence because it's very arrogant. Show me the code, don't talk about it. Another thing, like, oh yeah, well, why would I communicate with you? I just look at your code. Thank you for doing it, by the way, but I don't care about you at all. Good code explains itself. Best example ever when you talk about documentation. Yeah, well, everybody understands my code. Well, if he has the same knowledge as you have, the same experience and the same style of coding, yes, it's probably you then that understands your own code, not the other person. That is very simple, no need to explain. Everybody knows this. Who has seen Leah's talk earlier? I went through her slides with her, and halfway through she's like, everybody knows this stuff. Did you know everything in there? No. It's the simplest things need explanations over and over again, because we forget them. We hunt after the new cool stuff, we don't explain the basics anymore. Go file a bug, another good thing, like why should I talk to you? Designers, my favorite, like designers come to me and say like Firefox looks like shit, and I'm like, okay. Well, go to Bugzilla and file a bug. Like sending a designer to Bugzilla is like not gonna get into anything nice. So stop that as well. It's all on the wiki. Like somewhere in the documentation we have it. Just try to find it. Not a single wiki engine I know has a search that works. They're all awful. We fixed that later. Have you ever fixed anything later after you shipped it? No, you went to the next project. Nobody needs that, and you know everybody, right? It's like there's no use case when you haven't used it because everybody else should be you, and if not, it doesn't count. And that never worked before is another big thing that we do all the time. And if we did this, we wouldn't have Node.js, we wouldn't have CSS animations, we wouldn't have anything. So nobody uses XYZ, nobody uses Internet Explorer, what are you talking about? All my friends use Chrome and Firefox. Yeah, good friends, I wish all my friends were Chrome and Firefox users, but sadly enough there's people out there still that haven't seen the light or are not allowed to go to the light. That's what you get for using XYZ. You should buy a Mac. Well, you're homeless, but you should buy a Mac, then you can see what I've been doing. And my favorite, I will give you a script so you don't need to worry about it. Have you ever considered that? And we've done that so many times. People come to the office and annoy us with something, and a simple task that doesn't work well. I write you a bit of code, you have a button then to press it, so you shut up and you don't come back to me. And that way that person never learns, and we're the person that actually has to fix that, which is called patch and forget. Libraries, polyfills, and APIs, oh my, we write all these cool things to fix things. And the polyfills that Leah has talked about are not the ones that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the ones that give WebSockets to Internet Explorer 6. I'm talking to the ones that give 3D animations to Internet Explorer 5. And the ones that actually we patch input in somewhere and say like, okay, that's fixed now, we don't worry about it anymore. We never test in these old browsers, we never see if these things work, and we just put the polyfill or the API or the library somewhere, and then we never care about them and don't fix them and don't upgrade them when there's a new browser out. Because we're already chasing the next library to build. And we do that all the time. Look at the statistics of what jQuery is in use in the real web. jQuery 1.0 has lots and lots and lots of websites. And nobody upgrades even jQuery, although it's easy to do to link to the /recent. So if you offer a quick solution for everything, people love you. They're like, oh great, I don't have to worry about it, but that geek friend of mine that gave me that polyfill, I put it in the page and now everything rotates in 3D, awesome. They also expect you to maintain that for eternity, because if something breaks, they don't know what's going on. They just come back to you 5 years later and send you an email. Oh, my company website that sells, I don't know, sweaters for budgies actually doesn't work right now because of your script that you've written 8 years ago. Can you please fix that for me, because it's holding me back? And if your patch becomes an issue, then other people write a patch on top of it. So I've seen libraries that extend other libraries to fix around issues rather than fixing the original library and going to the core of that one. And it's not really useful all in all, because we patch and shift and release without looking at it actually. So educational material. The joy of tech editing. I'm just writing a book right now. I'm tech editing a book right now that's in use in every university and every high school in America. They make truckloads of money with that book. And it's basically by the thousands it gets ordered because it's been ordered for 7 years and it's been seen as good course material. The event handler chapter had, as an example, a table that got generated with 10,000 table cells and a mouse move handler on each of them inline that allows you to either color them with blue or red, depending on Shift or Control key that you pressed. The video chapter is a HTML5 one now. The video chapter shows a video of a game of craps, what the rules are, and writes a game of craps that was written in JavaScript in 1997. This is the stuff that people learn in universities. This is the stuff that they get graded on. They don't want to learn it, they just have to get the grades, so they have to read that stuff. So I hope that the book is a bit better now, but this is the things where we are. So ask the people in the know. Let's go to universities. Let's offer guest lectures. Let's go to university conferences and tell people this is not what you teach the folk out there. This is what we should be teaching them. This is what the market wants. And this is what we have to learn. Every engineer that I hire, I have to re-educate for the first half year. How is that useful? How is that sensible? It shouldn't have to be that way. And let's bring the enterprise and universities up to speed. I just spoke at a Java conference, Java Enterprise Conference, everybody in a suit. Don't know what I did there, but I talked about new technologies. People came up to me. I now have video conferences with SAP and a few other big companies about these new technologies. And they have to learn about it. They have to hear what we have to say. We can talk to each other, but we're not going to have an impact because we have to use their room booking systems and their ticketing systems and all that crap that they put on the web. There's gold there. You can make money with this. Look at Think Vitamin, Code School, and Codecademy, which is a very hard to pronounce name, but it's a very cool website. So these are all video tutorial websites that do 5-minute video tutorials on things that we consider extremely easy and everybody knows. And they're really, really successful with that. They're making money with that. Some of them are incredibly bad as well. And they get feedback then from me mostly. But Think Vitamin, for example, had a PHP primer that taught you in like 5 lines how to get your server hacked. Because it was like passwords, not in a text file, not encrypted, no filtering. It was wonderful. Now, native things. Joe Hewitt wrote a blog post that web technologies need an owner, that only technology is good when it has one owner. Apple is only successful because they control the hardware and the software and control everything. That's why they're awesome. Is the web doomed? Is it doomed? Let's discuss that with him. I don't think so. So, taking action on these points. Web intents, you saw yesterday. Something we really need. I really, really want to have web applications that can just say, I want to have a photo. I don't care what photo sharing service you use. You can use the stuff that you have in my web application rather than going to Flickr where you have no photos or going to Picasa where you have no photos. Boot2Gecko is Mozilla's thing right now where we want to build an operating system that runs on mobile devices that is completely open. Because we all have mobile devices. None of them are open. Android is open-ish, but the hardware is still not ours. We don't know what's going on in there. We don't have access to it. So we're trying to work around that. Open web apps, and I'm talking at Future Web Apps tomorrow actually about this, is web apps that can actually use the web and can be installed from any website and then dragged onto your desktop and sent to your mobile phone. That's something else we're working on. Web APIs, which is APIs that are in Boot2Gecko that allows you to access the camera, the accelerometer, all this cool stuff that the native kids use and we're not allowed to use somehow. And Browser ID is a way to actually log in into websites and into web applications without having to use a password. Because the password is stored much like OpenID in a secret with you. And you can take your identity with you throughout the web. We have full screen API, we have a notifications API, we've got context menus in the browser. That's what I'm working on right now in a few demos, to right-click and have a context menu to do things that real applications do. We don't have that in browsers yet, but it's coming. Which brings me to tools. We have a few talks about that already, and I think the thing about tools is that a lot of the things that came in the last few years taught people how to build for websites because the tools in the browsers were better. But let's talk about this one quickly, Adobe Muse. Anybody seen that? Adobe released a what you see is what you get editor that is new and cool and creates HTML5-ish things. And everybody was in a tizzy and basically had a good laugh about it and said like, oh my God, look at that code, that's awful. And why do you do? And the question is, why do they do? Why does a company like Adobe, who is not stupid, who made software, tools for years and years and years, really good ones, why do they think 2011 is a good year to release a what you see is what you get editor? When we've been telling the world for years that web technologies are easy and HTML is easy and CSS is easy and JavaScript is easy, you don't need a tool to paint. And what you see is what you get, editor, on the web is the most stupid thing you can ever think of. Because the power of the web is that your web application, your websites, your app can actually change according to what the end user uses. We can give people the best experience in their environments rather than one experience for all. So the whole concept of what you see is what you get is broken. But Adobe still had the idea there's a market out there, people need this. So we failed at reaching a lot of people with these things that are so simple and everybody knows. Debugging tools are a big thing. Firebug, I think, was the main thing that made us as a community start to build things much, much better. Before that, with alerts in the page, and like we did not know what's going on. Why does that thing not green? Why is it blue? What is that layout doing? You right-clicked it, you looked at it, and it worked out. Firebug is getting old. It's also slow. It's actually, it's maintained still. We have a full person on it, a full-time person on it. But it's one of the main things that people complain about. So, to me, the developer tools that we have right now are much more than debugging. So it's great that we have wonderful IDEs, but wouldn't it be awesome if we just in the browser can start editing and understanding things and understanding what's going on there and start fiddling with the page and having fun with it. So here's a preview of the stuff that's coming in the next Firefoxes. There's actually a demo DMG that you can download. So this is now the picker, the element picker that we had before. So instead of right-clicking it in the HTML and having the blue and green bars that fall over all the time, when you move your mouse you don't pick it anymore. You have a real animation thing going on here. You've got some breadcrumbs to navigate through the DOM to make people understand that the DOM in the page is more or less like a file system on your computer as well. We have a style inspector, which I'm not going to go into much. It's basically giving you the same things here, and you can do the styles. What's really cool is that with the style editor, you can start styling a document live in the browser and saving it back to your hard drive. I always use the web toolbar for that. I always wrote my styles in there, copied and pasted and saved it into my hard drive, put it up on FTP. So that's now coming in the browser and you can actually edit that. You see it transitions from one to another. So showing people some cool CSS stuff, just use that. Don't write any slides that you have to do there. Okay, we went overboard with a 3D display of your document that actually is using the accelerometer of your computer as well. So you can actually, it shows the DOM as a 3D view and you can actually fly through your website right now. But it actually... It actually shows you when your navigation is 40 levels deep. That is a shit idea. So that is pretty good about this. So this one uses WebGL as well. And the web console is the same as we have in Firefox before, so you can actually do all the alert stuff, the warning stuff, and all the things that you expected, but it's actually getting much better now because you can filter things down. That is already in the live Firefox right now. In-browser SCRATCHPAD. Fair enough, you can write JavaScript, you can put it in the page. Why can't you just a bit of JavaScript in the console? You can do that, but it becomes really unreadable. So we put a SCRATCHPAD in there that allows you to actually build things in the browser itself. And what you can do with it, and it's colored here as well, you can also highlight lines, and I say only execute those lines in the document right now. So you can debug bit by bit without having to comment it out like we did in the past, or go through a hard-to-understand debugger with like stop points and these kind of things. So you can highlight parts of it and run them in there as well. Source mapping, now this is really cool. This is not coming that soon, but let's write some CoffeeScript and have some JavaScript generated from it. And we have an error in both of them. And once we have the error and it actually runs and we see there was an error going on, in the tools it tells me that there's something went wrong. I haven't seen the video much yet, so I'm waiting a bit here. So IT is null is the error in there. And if I click on the error message right now on this thing, it shows me two lines. It shows me a JavaScript and it shows me a CoffeeScript. So I can click on that and directly edit the CoffeeScript without having to realize that the JavaScript error is somewhere in the generated code. And this is exactly what I want. And of course, as it's a geek tool, all of these things have a command line in itself. So you can turn on and turn off all the things with different commands if you don't want to use your mouse at all. So you can highlight nodes by using a highlight function and all these kind of things. So always remember one thing, that mediocre teacher tells. I can tell you cool shit. A good teacher explains why it is. A superior teacher demonstrates, oh, look what I can do. I can live code for an hour. You can't follow it, you won't have anything from it, but aren't I awesome? the great teacher inspires. So with tools in the browser, showing people what's going on, with us talking to developers and designers and people we don't want to talk about, we have a chance that we get listened to. We're not this geek community that does their own events and actually only talks to themselves. That's all I have. The slides are online. Thank you very much.